Meta Perspective Podcast.
Hello, and welcome back to Meta Perspective Podcast. We're your host, Alex.
Evan.
And the girl.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. Tonight we are going to discuss conspiracies.
Yes.
But if you are joining us for the first time, please give the channel a follow. As you can see on your screen, we have a new subscriber giveaway. We've been doing this podcast for a while, and we are just going live on YouTube within the past, month or two. So we got to build the subscriber base. So if you see on the screen, we've got a subscriber giveaway for $5 Amazon gift card. All you have to do is subscribe to the channel, send us a screenshot at parodyworldproductions@gmail.com, and we'll give you $5 towards Amazon. You can buy, some stuff you probably don't need.
Free money.
And
Take advantage of the caller, number 2. If at any point you want to jump into the conversation, just give that number a ring, and we may even have a special gift for you if you also follow the prompt.
Yep.
Actually, a little bonus for somebody who's brave enough to jump into this with us.
Yeah, and we got the chat up there too, so we can see what you guys chat about, and you can help us drive the conversation.
Yeah, because Meta Perspective Podcast is not meta without your perspective.
Yeah. So yeah, we've been keeping these episodes kind of open, hopefully to attract some callers. But tonight we're going to talk about conspiracies, and I don't think we're going to focus on necessarily like specific conspiracy theories, more the idea of conspiracy theories.
Yeah, as conspiracy theories have been kind of growing and becoming more popular, obviously, the idea of conspiracy theories itself is something that should be talked about. Everybody talks about what they think's happening. There's a lot of speculation from everything of politics, the shape of our planet, and everything.
Yeah.
Everything. So I feel like the idea of conspiracy theories in general need to be talked about because either there's a lot of crazy stuff going on or there's a lot of crazy people believing crazy stuff. So the idea of just what is a conspiracy theorist, what are conspiracies, kind of touching on that, what conspiracies have been proven true, what have been proven false. Like, again, if you got anything to add in the conversation, don't be afraid to jump into the chat or give us a ring.
Yeah, and hit us with your craziest conspiracy theory too, because in preparation for this episode, we did a little bit of research, tried to find some conspiracy theories that have been proven true and some conspiracy theories that have been proven false. But it was honestly kind of hard to find the conspiracy theories that were proven false.
Which I thought it would be the opposite.
Right.
I thought it would be like, oh, yeah, here's a million things that people thought was happening. It didn't. But it's like, oh, yeah, here's all the stuff. A lot of this is declassified. We'll explain every detail of it. We actually planned this out. You're like, oh, there's a lot of that.
Yeah.
That's been going on.
Well, like a couple, so like the main ones that conspiracy is proven wrong. Obviously, the Earth is round. Most people agree that that conspiracy is somewhat of a revamp lately, and I don't really understand why. Just seems like something that doesn't really need to be looked into further. It's pretty much proven. If you send a satellite into space and you lose contact with it when it goes behind the Earth, and then it continues to monitor the Earth until it comes to the other side, and then you have contact again. That pretty much,
Checks out.
Myth busted.
And I will say, for all the flat earthers out there, because I have a few friends who are pretty hard on the flat earth thing. And what I've learned it comes down to is essentially like it's flat because we're on a petri dish and aliens run everything. That's why everything's being lied about. Otherwise, why would you say that it's round if it's flat? There has to be a motivation behind why you would say that. So from what I've learned, the heart of that conspiracy is that we're on a giant incubator in space and we're being studied by aliens. My rebuttal to that would be, so what? How would that help humanity to know that everything's fake and there's nothing you can do about it? And if you try to rise up you're just gonna die because you're literally existing on something that was made. I just don't see the idea of or reason to invest into that idea
Yeah.
any further other than just like, okay, maybe it's flat. So what'd you have for lunch? Like, I don't really, it does nothing for me.
Okay, so what do we do about it?
Yeah. How do we make it round again?
And I think that comes down to kind of the reason why we're doing this episode. It's so conspiracy theories have gained a certain archetype in our modern world, at least recent history. Past couple years, a lot of theories have been thrown out, and they've been shot down as conspiracies. And we find out several months later, even or a year later, or something like that, that they're actually not as far fetched as they were claimed to be at the time. So there's something peculiar going on with that. It's really comes down to people's instinct and what they feel. What they feel is going on from a perspective of kind of like the why and the how, and when you are faced with something that doesn't make sense, humans tend to like try to find the patterns and try to make an explanation where one might not necessarily be there. So in a lot of cases, I get the idea that a conspiracy theory is kind of like a myth thing that's like fun to talk about, like Sasquatch and all that. But, in our modern day, these things need a little bit more scrutiny than they're giving, than credit has been given to them. And mainly, just asking things like why would this person do this, or even the how, like how could this be orchestrated, things like that. And I think it comes down to the proverbial they. It's a trope, an archetype of all conspiracies. It's a they. You just refer to it as they, and I think that's kind of like the people that you don't know, or they who will not be named kind of thing. Like, you don't necessarily know. And I think the root of all conspiracies kind of comes down to the concept that there is a group of elites or, people that are basically out of the spotlight that are pulling the strings, the puppet masters, so to speak. And while that may or may not be true, we're not saying that it is. We're just kind of talking about, like the structure of what could happen and how it could happen, and if there's any logic or validity to these claims. Most of the stuff, that was why it was hard to find conspiracies that were proven wrong, is because the crazy ones obviously were proven wrong, and it's not really worth writing an article about.
Yeah.
I guess the most credible one was probably the moon landing. That seemed to be, in my searches, like the biggest conspiracy that's kind of been disproven. I believe we went to the moon. I believe it was probably, a worthy scientific endeavor to do. Why would you fake it in a Hollywood basement just to
beat other countries?
Just to beat the right, yeah. Like,
but why was the flag waving?
Solar winds. I mean, yeah, there's little aspects of everything that can't be explained.
Yeah. Of course. I mean, it's like you're bumping the night. You're like, that's a ghost. It's your AC kicking on, buddy. Relax. Happens every night. You just don't normally stay up this late. Just little things like that. But I think there's also the element of, like you were saying in general, just the aspect of conspiracies. Anybody can go through this. You could go through this in high school, where you could just be a girl in high school, and the popular girls are trying to put you down, so they conspire together to say, don't talk to her, let's kind of shun her, let's kind of laugh at her when she walks by, let's try to just bully her.
Like Mean Girls.
Yeah, exactly. So Mean Girls is a great example. They had a whole book, all these things. They were
or whatever,
ruining people's lives. I mean, it's a tale as old as time.
The Burn Book.
The Burn Book.
The Burn Book.
It's like, and maybe it's not the government, but it's still a conspiracy theory that like these girls are causing this, or this is, this stuff happens every day.
Well-
Regardless if it's on a small scale or grand scale, the idea of somebody doing something with ill intention and not wanting to disclose it is pretty regular.
And I feel like now in our just the time period that we're in, we have a lot of scientific knowledge. Things like, is the earth flat? That's not really in question anymore, because it can be scientifically studied, backed up, proven that it's not or is, or we're not like in the Copernicus days where we're like, well, I believe that the earth rotates around the sun. Like, oh, that man's crazy. Let's torture him and call him a heretic and kill him. We can actually okay, well, let's look into this. Let's study this. Let's figure out if this claim that so many people believe, if it is so harmful to believe something that may or may not be true because it's disproven, let's try to prove it. And I find that right now that's not really the case. We have the knowledge and the scientific aperture to look at these things, but when conspiracies get thrown out, as of recent history, they haven't really been looked into. They've been dismissed, and a lot of people censored, and it's been called misinformation, things like that. But these are legitimate, concerns, or at least holes of unexplained phenomenon that we can look into and that we can gather statistics for and data for. There's not really an interest to do that. And that's kind of the peculiar thing now. And, just calling some a conspiracy theory, oh, let's not even look into that because it's a conspiracy theory. I think that's the concerning thing.
Yeah, I mean, I think if if I wanted to cover up something I was doing in high school, for example, just to keep going with that metaphor, if I'm in high school and I'm like conspiring against this other kid to, like, let's say, rob him after school, and we kind of set it up in that angle with some other people, there's a group involved. It's, I lost it.
Well, I mean, didn't
my bad. What was your last point? Let me retouch on that.
Just the peculiar nature of these things being theorized and not being looked into.
So that's what I was going to say is, if this kid caught wind of that and was like, I think there's a conspiracy against me. I'm walking down the hall, I see kids looking at me, I'm noticing something's going on. If I want to point it out, I say, you know what? This guy's always had a problem with me. I've put two and two together. I can't prove it, but I'm pretty sure this guy's trying to do something. I'm going to tell the principal. I tell the principal brings me in. FBI brings me in. They're like, all right, let's talk, buddy. So the principal brings me in the office. They're like, you're said to be doing this and this and that and blah, blah, blah. Wouldn't it be easy for me to just demonize the kid and be like, he's always doing this kind of stuff and this and that? I don't even know this person. Like, I don't know. Like, at this point, I feel bullied. And I would turn it around. I would be like, this person's crazy to even believe that. And then by the time it's proven true, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the idea is I don't even think for me, I think labeling somebody a conspiracy theorist kind of makes other people, you go ahead of the curve and you go, hey, by the way, in case you hear people talking about this is what they're talking about, and it's crazy. So then if I walk up and I go, hey, did you hear about this just happening? You're like, oh, yeah, I don't want to get into conspiracy theories. Like, I'm already looking down on you because you're somebody who would believe that stupid stuff. Like, it's all over TV that only stupid people believe that. I don't even want to have this conversation because I don't even want to entertain it. Like, it's like when somebody comes up and they're like, hey, the earth is flat. You're like, dude, how, like, I don't want to respond because it's going to turn into a conversation. I don't want to talk about that. Spend $200, spend a couple $1,000. You can buy a telescope, look at any planet around us. They're all round. Are they all just flat facing us? Or is every planet except for ours round? It's like, I don't want to have this conversation. It doesn't have a direction to go in. What are we going to do about that? But if it comes to something like politics and it's like, hey, if this said leader is conspiring with other countries and getting money from other countries, and clearly if we follow the money, and there's a lot of money that we can see this person has more money than they should in politics. You can look up their pay scale, you can look up all this stuff and their accomplishments.
Yeah.
They've done nothing to earn this extra $40 million. So my question is how did they get that money? And why do they have all these ties to these other countries? And people are like, oh, so you think that this president is colluding with this country? And it's like, oh, you've heard that before. Yeah, I've heard it's crazy. And you're like, you can do basic research and see that this person has 100 times the wealth than they should.
Yeah.
And most of that has been accumulated in the past 5 years. And there's no explanation how, just telling me that I'm crazy if I believe that this person's up to no good. It's like, yeah, I genuinely believe Joel Osteen worked really hard for that yacht, private jet, $30 million mansion. I believe that was
a yacht jet.
Yeah, yacht jet. It flies, it goes under a submarine, yacht submarine jet. But it's like, if you follow the money, you go, it's the biggest mega church. And I say this because I think we can all agree, Christians, atheists, we can all agree Joel Osteen's kind of a turd.
Yeah.
It's like this guy's got so many millions of dollars, but it's like, what did you do to get that?
American charity system.
You're not taking charity money, right? Donations? Like, no. How'd you get it?
It's in the fine print.
Oh, you're a conspiracy theorist. So you think Joel Osteen's taking money from Christians? No, I'm not stupid. I wouldn't believe something obvious like that.
Well, yeah, and then it's like, okay, if you ask how, there's a maybe not a provable answer, but there's an answer that kind of comes to mind that fits with the explanation of, okay, this is plausible. Maybe some back deals were done, and then, this politician agreed to do some kind of government thing, legislation or whatever, and maybe he was paid for it. That's pretty reasonable to assume that could happen.
Yeah, Joel Osteen might have written some books, and everybody that's ever gone to his thing bought 5 copies each.
Yeah.
It's possible. And kind of on that, a good example, the idea, like the border thing, like just with the borders, not taking a stance left or right on the borders, but if you look at the borders, one thing we can know for certain when it comes to the argument of opening or closing, one thing we know for sure is like deaths from fentanyl skyrocketed. Drugs in this country, terrible. Like all of these things are being brought in essentially for the most part.
Yeah.
So if all these things are being brought in, they're being brought in illegally, and it is coming over some border from some side. And if one side's saying no, keep them open, the other side's saying close it, like regardless of what side you're on, it's plausible to say that you want them open because cartels are paying you to keep them open to bring their stuff through. And it's also possible that they would say, you could say close them. You want them closed because, for that reason you don't get all the drugs in. I mean, I'm not. Yeah, again, I'm not taking a stance. I just didn't have another one prepared for that.
the, because obviously with immigration, we want people to move here. Same as
here.
any other country, literally any other country. If you want to move there and become a citizen, you have to take a test. You have to be checked. You can't be a criminal because countries don't want to allow people that are bad into their country. It's not free for all. It shouldn't be. So like why would you want open border? What's the goal that you're trying to accomplish with that?
Of course, there's a benefit from having a lot of people here.
Right.
Especially with growing these growing industries and everything else, we need people for. Although with all the robots, I feel like we're not going to need what we got. But like you're saying, it's like if, it's such a controversial topic, but it's like, why do you want them open if we know that human trafficking is so ludicrous? If we know that drugs are one of the most profitable things in the world, and we know that these deals get made, if we know that all these things are happening, why wouldn't we just say, hey, we want you guys here. Maybe we'll find a new process to speed up the legalities to get you here, but we can't just let anybody in because so many people are dying from fentanyl that is being brought in.
Yeah, people are taking advantage.
Yeah, so we have to. So because people are taking advantage, you got to close it. I mean, if you leave your door open all the time because you're like, oh, I'm not afraid of people robbing me, this and that, and then it's like people just come in and they grab a beer or something, it's fine, and they hang out and then they leave my house, even if I'm at work. But then you start noticing more and more beer goes missing. After a while, you're buying 30 cases a day, and you only have like 7 beers left when you get home for you. And
Yeah.
at some point, you got to close your door and be like, okay, I'm losing on this one.
Yeah.
You know, it's like it's the same idea. If you leave the door open and you come home and you're like, oh, there's a bunch of people overdosed in my house. This is a concern of mine. This is a problem. I don't want that.
Conspiracy theorist.
It's like it's crazy how the drug thing is such a big deal. But again, I'm not for open or closed borders, other than there is a major drug problem, and we know this is one of the ways these drugs are getting in. You know, why not close off one of the loopholes? You know, and try to find another way to help get people in here. Why does it have to be a this way or that way? No communication in between. Again, that makes me believe the conspiracy that the reason why the left and the right don't talk about why open and closed borders are a thing is because I've really never heard them, any side, push, hey, drugs come through here. But both sides are against drugs. But nobody talks about one of the biggest loopholes for drugs into our country.
Yeah.
So I've always thought that was really strange. If we're both if we're both for like we hate drugs, why is that not a topic? Because that's one of the biggest ways that it's coming in. Again,
Yeah, there's an obvious measurable harm that's being done. So is it crazy to think that there could be some reason why it's being allowed to happen? And I guess so like just to kind of kick this conversation off, I feel like all conspiracies kind of come down to one central concept, and whether you accept that concept or not, you know, it doesn't necessarily matter for how you look at it, but you need to at least acknowledge that this concept is there. And that's kind of the idea that human beings and our technology and our ability to make sugar and all that, we've basically gone from, you know, living as part of nature to ecological overshoot. And now we're basically overpopulated, over-consuming, and we're stripping the world's resources to sustain ourselves. And that is basically a fact. I mean, you can look at that from many scientific angles and come to that conclusion. So, I mean, that being the case, most conspiracy theories stem from this concept that there's a control aspect from people who are in power, the proverbial they, to basically gain control over us in order to prevent degradation of the planet and our species, basically. So, you know, it's not too far-fetched to consider that. If you see the rate that population is growing, the way that we're consuming and stripping resources.
Well, I've seen a lot of stuff emphasizing that the population is dropping, and that a lot of countries, including ours, if you don't factor in the people who have come into our country, legally, illegally, however you want to say it, if you take those people out, then as Americans, we are a little under the percentage for what we need to actually be sustainable, and our numbers are actually dropping. But I do agree that even with the numbers we have, we're over-consuming, which essentially is overpopulation.
Yeah.
Because you can be underpopulated, but if each person is eating, 10 tons of food a day, suddenly, 1 billion people's a lot.
Yeah.
It's suddenly that's more than what we have now.
Yeah,
so
like a lifetime American consumes more than 100 lifetime Indians or Chinese, or it's like you can measure these things and kind of make the comparison, and I guess from a global standpoint is kind of what I'm talking about. It's the idea that overall human beings are extending outside of our reach, and somebody has to reel that in. And it's not going to be the people it's not going to be everyday people, because we don't have the power to do that. And at the same time, we're just worried about our own lives and some people just making ends meet and providing for themselves and their families and their friends. And that's their small little world. They are not concerned with the overarching conflict of the planet. And that kind of, these are all legitimate concepts and concerns. So the conspiracies tend to stem from, like I was saying, the proverbial they that seeks to reverse this phenomenon by methods of control, population, or depopulation, things like constricting food and energy and resources and all this. And that's kind of the overarching concept behind a lot of this. And if you can agree that we do have a global issue with this that needs to be solved, then you can kind of follow the logic to why people would believe that some out there, the proverbial they, seeks to reverse that, gain control over us through ways that wouldn't be public, wouldn't be publicized, wouldn't be deemed ethical even.
Yeah.
And then that is really the crux of all of these conspiracies. It's unethical motives from people who are in the position of power to make those decisions.
And I think that's a great point. I think that's one of the biggest things people need to realize is what we need to do is either agree or agree to disagree. But you can't do that unless you understand what the person's saying. You can't sit there and explain, some, advanced engineering science to me. And I sit there and tell you that's not true. I haven't looked into this, but somebody told me, I've heard stuff about this, like, it's not true. I don't want to really hear it. You'd be like, I'm an engineer. I'd be like, yeah, but like, you're my friend, so I don't look at that as like credible. It's like, I was trained on this. I went to school. I spent a lot of money. Like, I'm credible.
Yeah.
I think that's the idea is like, I can listen to you, understand your points, and whether I agree or disagree, at least I can say, I know why he thinks this way. He actually made some good points. Like, I've listened to flat earthers and I'm like, some of you guys make good points. At the end of the day, I don't think it goes anywhere. And I think it's pointless to even focus on that topic, but some of the stuff is interesting. The idea that like NASA and all that's faking all these photos and it's all been fake. It's like, that's possible. I don't believe that, but it's definitely possible. So it's like you can see certain things where people are like, this is the proof. And somebody's like, nope, that's not proof. And you're like, I could see that. I feel like you're just being a jerk, but I could see it. I don't agree. But the point being that what people need to realize is that we all do agree on one thing, and you can look it up. The two number one most profitable things on this planet are drugs and human trafficking. I think the majority of this country, even drug users, know that drugs are bad.
Or not just drugs, like you talking about pharmaceuticals as well?
I mean, yeah, just everybody kind of agrees
not
that
just
like
illegal drugs.
Yeah, not just illegal drugs, but the pharmaceutical companies, all that stuff. Like, yeah, there's medication that does help people. And there's medication people need. There's medication that saved lives. But we can all agree that there's certain drugs that may not be necessary to be cycling through our economy. And literally like money. And it's like obviously it's wrong. So we can all agree drugs are bad. Okay. Mm-hmm. We can all agree that human trafficking is bad. So if we can all agree on this, then we can also agree that if you do basic research, you'll see those are the most profitable things on Earth. If they're the most profitable things on Earth, then we also have to agree that there is a they, that this isn't just a couple of organizations. This is a global thing. It happens all over the world, and it's not just little areas. I mean, it's a grand scale thing. That's why people very rarely get caught. And when they do, it's some guy who's like, I'm not saying nothing. I'm just doing this for myself. You're like, okay, well, this guy has been caught before. I mean, I know. I mean, I've. All I'm saying is, if we can all just agree that there's horrible things happening on this planet, and because it's happening all over the world, if our government, if our CIA, FBI, if all of these people, there's so many organizations, all of them, if all of them really work for us and they're all in our best interests and they all uphold the Constitution and believe in freedom and like the equal rights of all of us, whatever each individual thinks of that, thinks what that means, we can all agree we're alive. We should get to do what we want on this planet. within reason, and all the other stuff that's out there, like trafficking and all that, is bad. So why is it so prominent here? Why are drugs so prominent? Why is trafficking so prominent? If we have technology at the level it's at now, where like you were saying, the bans on $100 bills, when it's not just to make it harder to replicate, but it's also it has a chemical in it, a material in it that allows it in large quantities to be picked up by
sensors under the highway. If you drive over with a couple 100,000 and hundreds, especially out of Colorado. I've heard of people out of Colorado because of the marijuana business.
Mm-hmm.
It was all cash for a long time. It still pretty much is. So yeah, these people would wait at the border and they'd flag, okay, this guy's got a lot of dollar bill, a lot of physical cash, and then they'd pull you over.
So if we have that technology,
Yeah.
which is crazy, and then we have, those stoplight cameras everywhere. Now, almost every cop car nowadays has its own scanner. So as it drives, it'll be like, boop, this person has a warrant. And it'll pop up on the computer. Cop doesn't have to look for license plates or be like, oh, this guy's driving weird. Let me run all of his things. He has a warrant. It'll pop up, and more than likely it'll probably ignore warrants, or it might pop up and you can't really address it. But if something pops up and it's like, this is this person's under investigation. This is a wanted person.
Yeah.
This is different. They're wanted. It'll flag it and say that's the car. So if we have these technologies and we have cameras everywhere at stoplights and stuff, and that technology could easily be used for that, we could very easily, with facial recognition and all the technology we have, nobody should be able to be kidnapped and taken anywhere without that vehicle and that switching, like take this person, put them into this vehicle in this area. Like all that stuff, almost everything is recorded now. There's no reason anybody should be able to get away with anything anymore, especially something on that grand scale.
Yeah.
And the fact that it's the most profitable thing in the world makes me question, how is it so successful and ludicrous unless somebody at the top, they are allowing this stuff to happen and turning the other cheek.
Well, okay, so yeah, let's.
But that's kind of what I'm saying is if we can all just basically come together and agree, trafficking is bad, and we should be able to stop it. If we can agree trafficking's bad, we can start to at least say, okay, the point of my conspiracy, for example, really comes down to, bringing drugs in, or really comes down into human trafficking, or comes down into this or that, whatever it is. At least we can both agree, well, we don't like this. Neither of us trust giant corporations. Neither of us trust big government. A lot of people are losing faith in a lot of this stuff. Like I hear the left and the right arguing the same stuff. There's all these conspiracies going on with like Trump and Russia, or, George Bush did 9/11, or Hillary killed a ton of people. You hear all these different things. But if both sides agree that there are conspiracies going on from the other side, then at the very least, we should be able to agree that conspiracy theorists shouldn't be demonized, and the conspiracies should at least be heard out.
Yeah. Well, I mean, didn't the FBI like coin the term conspiracy theory?
Yeah, the FBI, CIA, yeah, they it was like after the Kennedy assassination. I actually did research years ago, like over a decade ago, where I found the FBI declassified document on FBI.gov explaining how they had coined the term conspiracy theorist after the JFK assassination to kind of curb people away from really looking into it. And it was proven they did withhold a lot of evidence and did not really disclose it to the people for what actually happened. So, or what they said happened. So later they're like, well, this and this and this. It's like, why didn't you say that in the beginning? That you're withholding the information, while at the same time coining the term conspiracy theorist, saying that anybody who really talks about like, oh, the government killed him because he was talking about doing all this stuff. And literally before he died, he had a speech talking about there's a shadow government. And I'm going to do what I can to fight for you guys because I don't agree with their plan. He's talking about they, and then he dies right after. And then the CIA coins the term conspiracy theorist to demonize people, which we still use today.
Yeah.
And you can go ahead and go and fact check it. They'll tell you about all the Twitter users and people who debunked that. And it's like, I saw the article. If I can get it back up, because those things are not easy to find through those sites. You have to really dig.
Yeah.
But if I can dig that back up, I'll include it in the comment section, or I'll include it in the description so that everybody has a link to see it. Because I think that's really the only link you need for this. I mean, CIA coining conspiracy theorists to curb people from theorizing about conspiracies is the meta of conspiracy.
I mean, and like in some level, I can see the point of why you'd want to do that too, because it's if you had a situation, let's say the JFK assassination in this case wasn't planned, it wasn't a conspiracy, it was an actual just an assassination that was made and went under the government's radar, and they're embarrassed about it, and then they basically have to kind of quell people's perception of it in order to maintain order. I mean, that would be a legitimate concern. But at the same time, the negative aspect of they're covering it up is almost more concerning.
Yeah.
So I mean, I think kind of like what I was getting to with the tree of conspiracies. You basically have what I was saying about the Earth has a problem, and
Human trafficking.
there's going to be those to seek. Basically, okay, let me frame it this way. So the root of all conspiracies I see in like maybe two, maybe like a third one that we'll come up with in a second here, but it's either comes down to profit or resource or control, and those things basically are at the root of all conspiracies, because like we were saying with the planet, if you do believe the planet is doomed, then you're going to seek to control people to prevent that. That is an ethically good reason to do something, even if you have to do unethical means. It's like means to an end, greater good kind of philosophy.
The trolley problem.
And then, what?
The trolley problem. If you're on a trolley and on the track in front of you is three people you don't know tied on the tracks, and you can have the switch and you can turn to the other track and not kill those three people, but on the other track is, let's say, a Nobel Peace Prize winner who's coming up with technology to end world hunger. Do you kill three people and save the guy who might save more, or do you kill the guy?
Right.
Do you kill one guy to save three?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The lesser of two evils kind of thing.
Yeah.
So like that's kind of, there's the ethical question there. Then there's also the idea of profit and resource allocation.
Derail the trolley and kill yourself and save four. That's the trick. Go on.
But I believe all conspiracies come down to these two things. Is it, is it the ethical obligation for pharmaceutical companies to, supply their patients with life-saving treatments that improve their quality of life and overall better humanity, or is it their prerogative to profit no matter what, even if they have to say that whatever they did or whatever drugs they produce and the side effects, greater good, there are some side effects, but overall more people are saved. So we're going to cover up any information about the negative side effects just because we're so ethically invested in this outcome that helps the greater good. So like
We'll read them so fast that you can't keep up with what's about to actually happen. Did he say bloody eye diarrhea? I don't even know what that means.
But it's okay, so like those two things you can follow every conspiracy back to. And then you have to ask yourself, what are the motivations behind why, like the conspiracy part of it. Like we were just talking about, it could be a very explainable reason why you'd want to suppress people questioning the government because it was a legitimate accident, or like the JFK assassination was just some guy that wanted to shoot him. So like, yeah, there might be some weird stuff there, but we don't want people to think that, it was us because that could destabilize, that could be bad for us, for everybody? Or is it more the case of we did do it and we don't want to destabilize everybody, because if they found out that we did it, then we would basically destabilize the government? I mean, either way, it probably leads to more chaos. But the truth element is the part that the conspiracy is born out of.
Yes.
Is what is true, what are we being told, what can we measure and research and prove ourselves, and what is the unknown factor? That's every conspiracy has an unknown factor. And I also think that that's why it was hard to find conspiracies that have been proven false. It's pretty easy to find ones that have been proven true. It was said, we find out later that it was true.
They're turning the frogs gay. Yeah.
But if it's something like, I'm trying to think of a good example of a conspiracy theory that we just haven't been able to prove it, if it's true or not.
Aliens.
They're out there. Aliens.
Aliens run our government.
Aliens is
stuff
perfect.
like that, yeah.
Yeah, so it's like you're going to have people that say aliens run our government, and you're going to have some people that say aliens are real. Both of those people are not in the same camp. One is a legitimate question. The other one is going too far based on the legitimate question. So, I think that is why the idea of conspiracy theorists or theories has been so demonized and overblown, is because, people do take it to the extreme. That's because they see all these other things that are happening. Like, okay, the Illuminati's real. Everyone's being controlled. Kanye was right about the Jews. Stuff like that. People just kind of fall into that hole.
Because there's no truth given to debunk the conspiracy.
And then they lose the skepticism and they lose the ability to critically think about these things. And that's not what we're advocating for. We're not saying that you should believe every conspiracy theory out there. Quite the opposite. You should look into the conspiracy theories that you find compelling and try to disprove them. I mean, that's what people kind of do. And there's a lot of things around what people say. Like, even if you bring up some of the more recent conspiracies with COVID and all that, you're going to have people that are like, oh, well, yeah, they didn't have microchips in the vaccines. And, well, no, I wasn't saying that. But there could be some other things in there, like the data's not out. We just don't know. And I can't take their word for it when there's no studies. So is that wrong of me to question, something that's very real and it's affected a lot of people? Or am I being overly, am I being pompous in my view of everything is out to get me and the world is being controlled by proverbial they and blah, blah, blah? It's like, well, somewhere in the middle is probably more reasonable.
I typically try to stay in the middle when it comes to how I analyze the situation. And when COVID happened, I didn't, obviously I was like, well, this is a crazy thing. But I didn't jump to like, oh, this is controlled or this or that. There's a point, there's a plan to this. They're trying to control everything. What I did was I said, okay, there's a sickness going around. And I just analyzed and watched how it played out. So when it was at its peak, everybody, I remember, I'll cut to this to keep it somewhat uncontroversial, but basically when I'm watching the news, you have certain media outlets saying that if you get the vaccine, you are 100%, and emphasized, you are 100% fixed. If everybody gets it, it's gone. We eradicate it. If you get it, you can't get it, and it won't live in you, and you won't pass it on. That was said on a major news network.
Oh, yeah, I think I know by who. Starts with an R, and last name starts with an M.
Ronald McDonald. You guessed it. And McCovid.
Definitely a clown.
Got the McBacks. But yeah, that's kind of something that stood out to me as I was like, these major news outlets are saying if you get the vaccine, you're 100% safe and you can go to Christmas with your family and not worry about killing your grandpa. Then on the other side, you have somebody like Joe Rogan, who says, you know, you could use ivermectin and with this and this or whatever, and it'll basically cure it. In a couple days, you'll feel better than you have. Like, that's it. It's done. A one and done ivermectin. So I watched all this play out, and I was right in the middle. I was watching both sides, left, right, everything.
Yeah.
In the middle, all the stuff. And what I noticed was the Joe Rogan thing that I watched, because it was popular at the time. It was sent to me, so I was like, I'll watch it. And I was like, oh, this is interesting. You know, he's doing an interview with the maker of mRNA vaccines, which is the vaccines that are going around. He made these.
Robert Malone, I think.
Yeah, and that video was taken down and flagged as misinformation. So I was confused. At that point, it had been proven that the vaccines are not 100% effective. Yet, if you go on YouTube, you can find Ronald McDonald's videos talking about the vaccine is 100% effective. You will not pass it. It cannot live in you. And all of that is 100% proven misinformation. But the thing about ivermectin, that they took the whole video down. Anything with ivermectin was flagged and taken down. But I never had an example for why that was misinformation. So this stays up, even though it's proven true as misinformation. While on the other side, they don't tell me why ivermectin doesn't work. They say it's a horse dewormer. Well, any medication can be used for multiple things.
Yeah.
But why are you telling me that this doesn't work? Yeah, it's also a horse dewormer. That's correct.
It kills worms.
Yeah, that is
apparently viruses.
it's like that is true. It does kill worms and horses or whatever. But I don't understand why you're saying it's misinformation. You haven't said why it's wrong, but you took it down saying it's misinformation with no example. And that's kind of what you're saying. Without truth, without some kind of understanding as to why that's not true, I'm looking at the situation very skeptical and saying, why is it that the person who's saying, take the vaccine 100%, you won't get anybody sick? And a lot of people went to Christmas after getting the vaccine with their grandpa, and a lot of people did get sick. And I guarantee you people died because they believed what they heard. So people died from misinformation. While on the other side, he's saying, hey, this will help you. And they're like, misinformation. But why? That's where it comes to. Is
people could have been saved.
If I don't have truth, if I don't have information to educate me as to why, because again, I was like, at the time, it's like, okay, ivermectin. Yeah, like it's a horse dewormer. Why would you be telling people? The media's telling me this stuff. I'm like, why would you be telling people that this could work? You like, without like some example. But then on the other side, I see Rachel McDonald saying all these things that it's 100% effective and you won't get somebody sick and it cannot live within you. That's all been proven wildly untrue. Yet those videos are still on YouTube, still circulating. And it gets to the point where it's like, what is misinformation? If we all know that this isn't true, and this one hasn't been proven untrue, why did we take down the one that was not proven untrue, but we left up the one that was proven untrue? That's where I start to come up with the conspiracies and go, what's going on here? Clearly there's an angle when it comes to media and like the fact checkers and like the social media police. It's like, why are we demonizing? Again, I'm not left or right, but why demonize one group with no example or no reason, I should say, but then lift up the other people who have been proven wrong and lives were actually lost from that misinformation. If you're going to argue misinformation can be dangerous and those people need to be flagged and the videos removed, why is it still on YouTube that she is saying it's 100% effective and it cannot live inside you and cannot transmit? It's been proven untrue. I mean, again and again, and every time they disprove it, they're like, "Oh, it's actually 90% effective. It's 80%." I've heard it go down so much it gets to the point where you're like, "Okay, are we going to leave this video up of 100%? We're just going to leave that up? Okay, never mind.
I mean
that's fine.
That comes down to the whole profit control aspect of all this.
But again, if it's misinformation and the whole thing is we don't want to misinform people, again, I rationalize saying, well, if misinformation can be harmful, this video is harmful. And if you're telling me that you don't want misinformation to get out because it misleads people, then why are you not educating me on why this video was removed and why this doesn't work?
Well, okay.
So again, it comes down, like you said, to the money. If one person's pushing something that's made billions of dollars since it started, While the other person is saying, I found a cheap remedy. And they're like, that's not true. You have to sit there and say, this is how this is playing out.
Why is this person not being listened to? It's not that, this person is true or correct. Why aren't we all taking ivermectin? It's more like, why is this person being silenced? And like this is really coming into like our current situation with everything. It's this control aspect of, maybe it's very legitimate to think that at the time, all that was being done to push, vaccinations and stuff like that, getting people, the population to be resistant to the virus was an ethical endeavor. That's a noble thing. But then, when we find out later that there was conversations between, the government and the CDC where they kind of acknowledged some of the side effects of the vaccine and basically suppressed it, to, at that point you have to ask, why, if you were so concerned with our health, if this was an ethical endeavor like you framing it as, why would these things be suppressed? Why would this information not be allowed to be talked about? It's not just that it's not allowed to be out there, because it can be out there and that's fine. People can make their own decision, but it was actively suppressed. And then that is where the conspiracy part comes in, because your mind thinks, well, why would they suppress it if they're looking out for our well-being? Why would they not at least tell us about this other side?
And aside from the side effects, like you were saying, if this is an endeavor for the genuine well-being of humans, and that's why this is so important, that's why you shut people down, I understand that. It makes sense. But again, for me, it comes back to, if somebody tells you, if you get this, you're 100%, and this was right before like the major holidays that this was said.
Right.
That if you get this, you're 100% cured. On top of that, it can't even live in you, so you can't transmit it. And you can't get it. So you can go be around people with COVID, you're fine. You could go be around your grandparents, you're fine. It was right before the holidays, and all those people who got it were like, finally, I can go see my family again. I'm tired of the quarantine. I'm tired of all this. I can finally go see my family. I can finally see my grandpa. I've been so scared, but I got the shot. I'm good. So then they go to their Christmas. They go to their, whatever it was. It was like either right before Thanksgiving or Christmas.
Yeah.
It was before the major holidays.
2021, November, December.
And it's like, during that time, a lot of people did go, and I can guarantee you, people did die because of, something like MSNBC or something has a lot of viewers. If 100 of them go, oh, I'm going to take this serious. Now that I have this, I'm going to go to Christmas. I guarantee you one of those grandparents got sick and died. At least one. And that's my point is, if this is about the greater good and misinformation is dangerous, and the reason we're doing all this and suppressing certain things and all this is for the greater of humanity, you have to ask, well, then why are you leaving up the things that are doing more harm, that are misinformation? Why are you not releasing the things to allow me to make my own decision if this could be harmful? If it's all about it can spread, then why are you not telling me that it's not 100%?
Well,
it's like, why are we suppressing all of this? Clearly, when you go on.
that comes in. That's.
I want to get flagged, so I have to keep checking myself.
And we're really not trying to take a hard stance on any of this.
No,
like we're just looking at it, especially now, like in hindsight, and we're trying to draw the logical parallels, and then like everything that you just said, that kind of comes into the kind of control sphere of things, but then you look at like in this same example, at the time, notable doctors and organizations, health organizations like Johns Hopkins, things like that, they were sounding the alarm on, or at least they were acknowledging the effectiveness of, you've gotten COVID once, you have somewhat of a natural immunity built up in your body.
Yeah.
Pharmaceuticals can only replicate that in our body. That's the purpose of them. They a vaccine basically acts as an immunity support for your natural body process. So when a lot of these people were saying that, oh, okay, so like natural immunity is as effective, if not more effective, than the vaccine. We don't know. The data's not out yet. But that is a legitimate scientific consensus, or at least claim. Let's test that hypothesis. No. Suppressed. And that's where it goes from the control aspect to the profit aspect. Like why would they control us in this way? Okay, maybe there's an ethical backing. Maybe they're just trying to keep the most people safe, great or good.
Yeah.
But then you ask, okay, well, why not,
Two sides to every coin.
why not the natural immunity? Why isn't that not being talked about? Why is that being suppressed? Why is that even considered misinformation when you have all these legitimate doctors and medical agencies saying this? Then it goes into the profit part. And that's where the conspiracy theory is born, in these two converging controlled profit phenomenons. Because why would you not even acknowledge, or at least give some credibility to that at the time? Oh, well, it might be because you're trying to sell vaccines. That is my logical conclusion in that. What else could it be?
Couldn't be regulation and power.
But that's the control aspect.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's like, okay, why would you not acknowledge that someone who's already gotten COVID is probably just as good as someone that has the vaccine? Well, because you're not selling a vaccine when you tell people that.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, well, maybe the ethical, maybe people that think they had COVID don't really know, so we can't let them think that they have natural immunity now because that could harm more people. That's probably it. That's even more of a stretch now. You're stretching this ethical thing very thin.
Yeah.
So when you really scrutinize this stuff, this is why people come up with these conspiracy theories, and this is where they get ridiculous too. They take it to the next level. Oh, well, they're suppressing the natural immunity because they want to microchip us. It's like, well, I'm not saying
Pump
that.
the brakes. Yeah.
I'm just asking why wouldn't they at least give some validity to this when you have all these legitimate doctors that are saying that this is probably just as effective as getting the vaccine. So, then the conspiracy theory people run wild, and I get why people are kind of turned off to the idea of conspiracies, because they don't want to listen to the flat earth guy. But in a real sense, if you just think and you follow the logic and you follow the money, like you said earlier, you follow the money, what are the motivations behind the people that would seek to control this situation for their gain or for the greater good gain? And what ethical boundaries have to be broken for them to suppress what they're actually doing? Because if you're trying to get to this greater good concept and you're breaking some ethical rules along the way, I can accept that if you can explain it to me.
Yeah.
And it makes sense. I'm willing to accept that, closing the border to keep drugs out is going to hurt some families that are actually seeking asylum or whatever.
But it's going to help families who are here.
It's
losing
like
their children.
Yeah. Then weigh the scales. Is it 50,000 families? Well, how many people die a year from drug overdose? How much has that increased over the past 4 years? You look at that kind of stuff, then you're called as conspiracy theory. When you start looking, or conspiracy theorist, when you start looking into these things and asking the questions and trying to find the data and trying to draw correlations, that's when you're called a conspiracy theorist, because they don't want you thinking that. And that comes down to the proverbial they, which I just used. And who is they? Who is the they? And that's kind of a...
They're the ones with all the money. The people that aren't talked about. It's not...
Well,
that's why I always thought it was
the
funny.
ones with the money, the ones in power. It's
That's why I always thought it was funny that the richest people in the world are people like, Mark Zuckerberg and Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos, and you hear these names and you're like, none of those are oil tycoons. Pretty sure they got more. You're talking about the richest people in the world. What about who owns like these world banks? Pretty sure they got more.
Well,
like who owns some of these things that we all use? And you're telling me that like the guy who owns Amazon makes more money than these oil tycoons out
Than the
out in
country
Middle East
of
and Saudi
Djibouti?
Arabia. Like, yeah, it becomes like, okay, I'm thinking that's the people with the most money
Yeah.
are the ones who can easily have the most power. If I have $400 billion, I'm pretty sure I can persuade some elections.
Yeah.
Pretty sure with $400 billion, I can
Or at
persuade
least-
some stuff. Hey, I know how
at
things
least
work. I'm
some
going to set up an
voters.
offshore account. You're going to have money. Just dip into it sparingly. Once you retire, go crazy.
Like it's not
You
even.
know,
It's like you have to frame it in the right way because it's not even. You could influence elections. Like let's just say
Influence
that,
everything.
like because that can mean a lot. People put a conspiracy spin on that. Like oh you can buy, or like Dominion voting machines and you can buy people that, throw away ballots. It's like no, you can actually just influence regular voters with that amount of money. It's not illogical to assume that $400 billion could sway a significant percentage of people given the right motivations or the right propaganda or whatever you put out. Maybe that's not the government doing that, and maybe it's just George Soros doing that, but he has a lot of money, so he can do it, and it's probably more effective than 0% effective.
But even on a lower level, let's say this person is a drug kingpin, in some country.
Pablo Escobar.
And he's like, I'm stupid rich. Like my money's dummy. Like it's crazy. Like my pockets are fatter than Lizzo. Like it's crazy. Like I just got stupid money.
Yeah.
To quote the worst rap I've ever heard, but that's what I'm saying is like, if I have that kind of money, I can buy a guy to be like, hey, you do research, figure out who's really in charge of the borders, and I'll find that person who is in charge of who's over all the other people. They make the main decision, and I'm going to get them.
I'm going to give them $50 million.
Yeah, to just kind of push this thing. Let them know, hey, it is for the greater good. A lot of the stuff that comes in does help certain things and this and that. Of course, there is bad stuff that comes through. But what you have to realize is it's $50 million. And then at that point, some dude who's like, I've been struggling. I'm in this cutthroat business where people are trying to destroy my career while I'm trying to make a career. I'm trying to help people while people are saying that I'm trying to hurt people. And it's like, I feel like this is a thankless job. I don't make that much money.
I was going to hang myself yesterday.
And I had to learn so much about this country to even get to this point of stress. And then somebody offers you $50 million to basically be like, hey, just give up. And you're like, bet,
All right.
bet.
You're
I'm
saying I
done.
can't get in trouble for this? Okay. I'm
Okay.
down.
Yeah. This is for this reason, to help families. You're right. Drugs are bad. But when you come to me, offer me $50 million and tell me how many families I'm helping, then even if the numbers don't totally make sense to me, all I know is there's some good in this,
There's $50
along with $50 million, and that's a lot of what it comes down to.
Right.
You know, is-
everyone's just a regular person out there, even politicians.
But that's the thing is, if you can give that $50 million to that person realizes, well, if I'm going to do this, if I'm going to push this for you, I have to convince people. So you don't need to spend all your money to run campaigns and try to convince people this is a good idea. You pay one guy who makes the decision, and he'll convince everybody. So because what is he going to do? Be like, I made this decision. It's a terrible one. No. You're going
I
to be
was
like,
paid to
this
say
is my career. This is my dignity. I'm going to tell people the pros that I was told.
Right.
This is what it's for. I'm about helping people. I'm this. I'm not going to give you any other reasons. I'm not going to really entertain any other
All
conversations.
these crying children at the border I see every day.
Yeah, and it becomes a thing where it's an emotional thing, and people go, well, who would want a child, left in an area where its life is in danger? Nobody wants that. But on the flip side, you could easily argue with open borders, you're also risking the people in the country and their children dying from drug overdoses and the fentanyl and the very dangerous chemicals that are in these drugs that are coming over. So it's on both sides. It's helping the people who need help or protecting the people who have problems. And you go, well, they already got problems. They're going to get their drugs. At some point, they'll die anyway. So help the people who want the help. And then just let, if they're going to die from drugs, they're going to die from drugs. It's like, I could see that. Everything's personal choice. But at the same time, it's hard to argue that, like, the stuff coming through, you don't know what it is. Fentanyl has shot up like crazy. And a lot of that points to it coming from other places. And it's not us making it. So when you get to that kind of threshold, you're like, okay, what side am I on? Where's the line and what side should I be on?
Where is it coming from? How is it being, how's it being let in? Like, yes,
how's it being let in? How's it being distributed? Why is it able to get around so easily?
Yeah,
everything's recorded. There's cameras everywhere. Like, you're telling me some kid didn't take a YouTube video real quick or a TikTok of like some shady truck that pulls into this area, every once a week, and it's this big U-Haul, and otherwise this building's condemned. Well, there's not like
perfect example. My one of my best friends I went to college with he's my roommate. He's a marine biologist, lived in the Virgin Islands, worked at the Ocean Center there. When I went to visit him, and apparently I guess it's like the National Guard or whatever, because they're a territory. They're not a state. They're like considered U.S. You'd have to have a passport to get in, but you wouldn't necessarily become a citizen because you live there. So like it's kind of this in between area, right in the middle of the Atlantic, right? So like apparently the local military, Coast Guard, government agency, when he was living there, when I went to visit, they had been disbanded because they were actually working with drug cartels. They were actually letting drugs in through these corrupt means. So they like got found out, and they basically Epstein's Island is on this St. Thomas. This is right next to where he lived. He lived in Red Hook. Epstein's address is like something Red Hook. It's just a fucking island. You sail like 5 minutes, you can see it. So like the Coast Guard in this area was basically non-existent when I was there. He was able to put a mooring, which is just like a floating ball that's locked to the seafloor, to lock his boat in. He was able to do that for like $5. Normally it's like you have to pay $200 to a government agency and blah, blah, blah. They monitor it. They check it every year. You have to apply for a permit. like none of that. It was just gone. So it's like, okay, so this government agency or military, like, Coast Guard-ish-esque military group was basically coerced by the cartels and then had been shut down and wasn't operating for like the past 2 years. Like, what? Like, this stuff goes on. This is not a conspiracy. This is real. And like, you find like the darkest things in this world, you don't know about them. Yeah. I mean, that's the conspiracies that are dark. When they get proven true or whatever, that's a sad thing because we knew about it all along. But the stuff you don't know about, that could be even scarier.
Like Epstein's Island.
Right, exactly.
When you hear about that, you're like, you're telling me huge politicians, celebrities, like everybody was going to this island, and these people are known for human sex trafficking, and like that is essentially what's kind of been proven to be what was going on there through the rumors and all the stuff from people who have been there.
Well, you think about sex trafficking, you think like, Middle East or somewhere in South America, like these like, rebel groups that are just trying to make money selling human slaves and all that. It just sounds like, oh yeah, our government's never doing that. That's a conspiracy.
But a big famous guy that has this picture with every human being ever alive.
Yeah.
Like this guy. This guy was the one who was kind of like figureheading a place to do it.
Yeah.
Like that tells you it's much bigger than that. If this guy's already got stupid money and he's got all these connections, he's intertwined to everybody.
And then he gets killed. He kills himself in jail.
It's like clearly he wasn't the one doing all this. He was the one who's like, I have a place, I got all this stuff, I'm a part of it. And then it's like he was killed. Yeah, he was killed obviously because other people were like, you're not gonna screw this up for us. Yeah, you lost an island. We got 7 more. We're not worried about that.
Yeah.
You know,
I mean,
we'll create a new resort.
The amount of blackmail that guy was involved with that we know now, these are not conspiracies anymore. He was basically did a bunch of financial crimes, a lot of blackmail, and they got like somebody knows the list. Somebody knows who he worked with, but they're slow releasing it. They're letting us chew on the breadcrumbs of this situation. But would it be earth-shattering to know that like all of the major political figures in the past 20 years had been having sex with children? You know, yeah, it would be. So like at some point you're like, okay, well, greater good. You know, I'm just an FBI pencil pusher that reads these documents. I can't talk about this. I'll be arrested. You know, it's like, well, greater good. People don't need to know this. So let's suppress it. Let's suppress let's call it misinformation. Let's call it a conspiracy.
Or just kind of let it die.
Because the truth, because you can't handle the truth.
Yeah.
And so it's like, okay, very logical to assume all these things. Are people being lied to? Yes. Are people being made out to be crazy based on these conspiracy theories? Yes. Are you basically diminishing people's skeptic mind to question when authority tells you something is the way it is, to not look into it and not question it? Yes. So like, how can you not give some validity to the idea of a conspiracy theory? And it comes down to the proverbial they. So like, let's look into the proverbial they. Okay. Let's just we kind of been talking about it. So 1,000 years ago, that could have been the Pope, the King of England, the King of France, the King of Germany, you know, the King of Spain. You know, we get all these people in the room. Maybe it's like 10 people. I have an idea. You know, blah, blah, blah. Let's start the Crusades. You know, like, okay, not that off to assume that that's logically possible. It may have happened. And that's why people talk about the Illuminati. Okay, maybe that was what the Illuminati is. Maybe they're in power now. Maybe we don't know. But that is very logical to assume because people can't communicate. We don't have cell phones, shit like that. So, like, that's possible. Now, Fast forward to now. Okay, well, you know, who's in the room? Jeff Bezos, Tim Cook, or whatever, the Apple guy, Alphabet. You know, you have Google, Apple, Facebook. Used to be Twitter. I wonder why Elon Musk is being attacked so hard. You know, like you get all these people in a room. It's not that many people, maybe 10, just like it was 1,000 years ago. And they all decide that the Hunter Biden laptop is misinformation or people can't talk about ivermectin. You know, these are legitimate concerns of legitimate people that aren't conspiracy theorists. They're just questioning the motives behind these actions and what's being told to us versus what we feel in our gut and what we can prove with data or statistics. And maybe the data's not out on a lot of this stuff, but it's coming out. And the conspiracies that were going on 2 years ago, we're finding out that have a lot more validity to them than they were being framed as. So like, what's going on there? You know, is there a proverbial they of like 10 or 12 people? Those are the people that we know. What about the people we don't know too? I mean, they could have influence as well. I mean, that gets into the conspiracy side. But there's a lot of, you know, like we're just talking about the cartels. Biggest profitable operations in this world are sex trafficking and drugs. I'm sure there's a name of someone in South America or Central America that is involved in those things and has a lot of money that's not on Forbes top 10.
Yeah.
And same thing with the Middle East. I'm pretty sure some of those oil sheiks don't necessarily end up in the Forbes magazine either. So it's like, okay, there could be people out there that are pulling the strings that we don't know about. But if we just ignore that, we don't want to get too conspiratorial. If we just look at the people that we do know, it doesn't take much for the head of the FBI to call Facebook and say, suppress this story, flag this as misinformation. Because why? Because there's an ethical motivation, because you want greater good. You don't want people to be harmed by this medication. But what about the data? Everything points to that's not true. So like, why would you do it? So it's not that much of a stretch to assume that there is a small elite they that is responsible for most of this control. And I'm not saying that is the case. I'm just saying that it's not unreasonable to assume that could be going on. To between 0 and 5%, probably. Between 0, between 90 and 100%, probably not. Maybe they're not pulling the strings 100%, but it's a spectrum. So like,
yeah,
is it going on? Is
it's
it
like
possible?
You said, if there's 10 figureheads that own 10 of the biggest companies that own all the other companies, you look at something like BlackRock that owns Sony and like so many other companies.
And
Sony,
everyone's retirement fund.
but Sony itself, yeah,
Vanguard and BlackRock,
Yeah.
they have all of our money
Yeah.
in their pocket, and they play with it.
and on top of that, you look at like something like Sony. They make televisions, they make music, they make movies, they make shows. Everything that you can take in from music to television to movies, they also make the things that you can play it on.
Yeah.
It's like and then Sony itself owns virtually every musician you will ever hear on the radio. There's plenty of people out there that you'll never hear, but on the radio, just be like, oh, Alexa, what label is this person a part of? I'm going to tell you, like 90% of the time, if it's somebody that you hear on the radio, it's Sony. And if it's a different company, ask what who owns that company, that label, and it'll be like Sony owns that label. And it trickles down. So it's like, yeah, this guy has his own label now, but it's through this company. Oh, okay, so he's his own thing. No, it's all through Sony.
Yeah.
It's all through Sony. So when you get to above that, BlackRock owns Sony. So then you start to question, like, who owns BlackRock? And it's like, well, BlackRock is kind of owned by this company. Well, who owns that company? That company's kind of owned by this company.
The investors.
Yeah, well, who owns that company?
Well, who decides for the
BlackRock owns
investors?
that one, and it just goes in a circle, and it's all this. It's a confusing blob, and you're like, there. That's an area maybe we should start with for legitimacy.
Yeah.
If we really care about the integrity of this country, then like FBI, CIA, like this is the area we should investigate in, because they are probably somewhere over in that direction. And if they're not, that's fine. But maybe we should investigate the people who own like all the money and all our money. Like you said, like it's not something we should take lightly. It's
Let
like,
me reel in a conspiracy that's happened recently that goes to what you're saying. The Hawaii fire. Now the conspiracy is that the Hawaii fire was basically a negligence situation from the Hawaii Power Company, and
the Hawaiian Power Cup. Come on.
Hawaiian.
I'm just kidding.
But essentially, it's like it's probably the second highest value of land in the world is Lahaina, or I think it's Lahaina, wherever in Maui, wherever that area was burned. And I've been there. So the same friend that lived in the Virgin Islands, he now lives in Maui. I went to visit him. I've been to that area. It was fun. It was like the place to go. And you have a lot of like legacy Hawaiians that have owned shops and stuff like that, that like, that's their land. That's their tourist spot. They get money from it. They've got
an
an ice cream
ancestral
shop.
thing,
You know,
like
they've got a cute little ice
yeah.
cream shop. You know, it doesn't make that much, and the rent's expensive, but their grandfather owned it, so they're not really paying on it like they should be. So here you have a situation where, okay, well, if we're just negligent and it all burns to hell, and we can come in and buy it up, then it's the second most valuable land in the world. So like, well, you know, it'd be great if it just burned to the ground.
by accident.
But like, we could just
Facts.
pay, you know, we could just pay everyone, but they won't sell to us because that's their Hawaiian ancestry. So like, we can't force them to sell.
It's their culture.
So like, what
They won't do it.
What do we
Yeah.
do?
What do we do?
We just can't buy it. I guess we're just gonna turn our
We'll wait for
turn
an
our
accident
backs to it. We'll just,
accidentally happen.
you know, maybe if
Oops.
we're just wait for the opportunity to arise where we could buy it, and we've already bought like 40%. So like, it'd be great if we owned 100%. And then you have this situation where the fire catches, people die. It's a very serious thing to accuse anyone of conspiring to make that happen. The implications of that are very unethical, and they look bad to not only the companies that might be responsible, but the government. And there might be a scapegoat. Oh, the power company was negligent. They, you know, these power lines were like.
He's
you know,
because of his accident. He's going to jail for 3 years. Is he going to come out a rich man? No.
Yeah.
No. No.
it's like billions of dollars are lost, but this one man is in jail for life. So we're.
Nope.
just-
Never
ju-
mind.
justice.
Never mind.
We've got
Breaking
justice.
news. Breaking news. He actually died in custody. Whoops. Like the guy who shot Kennedy, Epstein, and everybody else.
His family is now living in a mansion in, you know, in this country, and we're not sure how the money got there. But, you know, overall, you know, he needed to go to jail because that was wrong.
Yeah. It's terrible.
So it's okay. Well, I see why this conspiracy theory has validity now. It doesn't make sense. I mean, like, basically, I'm pretty sure BlackRock came in and bought up most of that shit, and they're going to develop it. It's going to be a new thing now. And oh, it was just an accident that this happened. Oh no, but
Right after that happened, you have all these rich people publicly being like, "Oh yeah, we bought this stuff, we bought that." It's like, you realize people are suffering right now.
yeah. And instead of giving, you know, $80 billion to the people of Hawaii to rebuild the people who lost their homes. Oh, well, they had insurance. They'll get a couple $100,000 for their property at the value that was assessed. You know, this building was built in the 70s. It's probably only worth about $500,000. But the land itself is worth $2 million. So like, you still have the land. You can still build your ice cream shop again if you want, or we'll buy it for $3 million.
Yeah.
So okay, now it's starting to make more sense. So it's like, okay, the conspiracy now has wings, but it's never going to be proven. No one's ever going to admit to it. Maybe one guy took the fall, he's the scapegoat, but we're not going to point fingers at these players.
Yeah, we're not going to acknowledge it. We're not going to talk
And
about it
it was
anymore.
such
It
a
was
tragedy.
tragic.
It's such a
Exactly.
tragedy that
That's
we
it.
can't look into it because people died.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, at the end of the day, the conspiracy theory is not that crazy.
Yeah.
And that's
But the
what-
idea of talking about, like, there may have been a reason people died. Are we going to talk about, like, did they die on purpose? This was a terrible accident. This isn't something we should just start speculating on. People killed him on purpose.
yeah.
Didn't
oh.
you buy a place down there? That's irrelevant.
Well, you just gave $100 billion to Ukraine, but Hawaii, what happened? Why not no aid to Hawaiians
No help.
that you want to claim that you are morally supporting? It's like, it don't make no sense.
Don't make no sense. I got to use it real quick. Put the camera back on him. My foot's asleep.
And Hawaiians are very passionate people. They are very indigenous to their islands, and that's a big thing, and I respect that. And you know, for the government to claim all this moral superiority and ethical backing to everything they do, why not divert some of that cash to Hawaii? And that's kind of comes down to, oh, well, you know, there's a war and Putin and all this stuff. Like, this isn't right wing to ask to question this stuff. It gets flagged as right wing, and it gets flagged as conspiratorial. It's not. I'm telling you that this is a legitimate logic train, that if you follow everything, it comes back to control or profit. And that's basically where we're at in our society now, is that the things that are going on are not for the benefit of humanity. And that's kind of where I started with this whole episode off with, is that there are those that think that the world is overpopulated and needs to be controlled, or we will end up killing ourselves or in ultimate doom. And that's, you know, whether that will I mean, there's some validity to that claim too. But the reality is everybody's an individual, and we're all people on this earth, and we can work together. There's another alternative. It's not easy to get to. We all have to set aside our differences, but none of this is helping us do that. So all of this division, calling people conspiratorial, you know, trying to flag things as misinformation, this isn't helping us get together and you know, solidify our resources and our aim and our objective to helping the globe. This is basically to say that you don't know what you're talking about and you deserve to be controlled.
Yeah. That's well said. I mean, that's essentially what it is. It's like I was saying earlier, if misinformation and all of this stuff and conspiracies are so bad, if I hear a conspiracy come out and I'm like, and a legitimate one, like you were saying earlier, you can look up, Google, you know, conspiracies that were proved wrong and conspiracies that were proved right. The ones that were proved right all have a common theme. It's like
they all start with the word project and end with another non sequitur description.
Yeah, but overall, each one has a theme. It's power, or it's control, it's money, or it's
I said we'd find a third element in there because it's probably there. I just haven't.
No, I swear you said it earlier.
Yeah, I was like, there's definitely
trying to
two,
come up with
maybe a third.
Numeric thing to like be like boom, 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 like
control, profit. What else would be in the motivations?
You had one. You said it earlier. Whatever. The point is that when you look at the 10 that were proved wrong, they don't make sense. Those cores aren't there. Like one of the ones that popped up when we were looking through, it was just like all this silly stuff. Like I have heard people say there's conspiracies that like the 5G may be actually too powerful in causing cancer. When you look up like conspiracies proven wrong, like one of the big ones is like 5G does not cause COVID. And it's like, well, I've never heard anybody make that argument. That should be easy to prove false. That's so easy to prove as false. Like I could sit there with no education and say, that's not true.
Like all right, everyone out there, think of your biggest conspiracy theory friend. Did he ever claim that 5G causes COVID? Did anyone that you know ever claim that?
Because that's one of the big conspiracies proven false.
Yeah.
You know, it
was top 5. It was the top 5 conspiracies proven false. That 5G causes COVID, that wind farms cause cancer, that I can't remember.
So
they were all
that's
ridiculous.
The thing is like, so the motivation of the ones proven false, the motivation for all of those was just death.
Oh, that the vaccine makes you magnetic. Like no one was saying we are magnetic already. Our bodies are magnetic. You touch a fucking magnet or a meter and you can read. Like, that's why we get electrical shocks. We're basically magnetic.
Yeah.
Not like, annoying.
Yeah, but like
Pick up pennies. And
Like I've never seen a story. I've never even seen a fake YouTube short of somebody saying, "I got the vaccine now." Bzz, everything sticks to me. Like these things aren't real conspiracies. Like all these things proven true are things nobody's really arguing. And that's more of my problem is when you look at like a lot of the stuff that's proven false, the heart of the issue doesn't really have anything. So it's like, okay, 5G caused this COVID. What are you? Is that a conspiracy, or are you just saying that they made something and that's an outcome?
Yeah. What else
and
does
that outcome,
5G cause?
Yeah, and that outcome isn't true. Now, if it was proven that 5G does cause cancer, let's say it was declassified that was proven. Let's say 7 years ago, before it really started to get pushed and really started to grow.
We know it fucks with birds.
But if that's the case, then you would say, okay, if the data was out then and they still did it, they still did it. That's negligent. That's a conspiracy. Why are you risking people's lives to get another tower? Money, profit.
Yep.
Okay, that's an area right there. That makes sense. But like COVID, why would they do that? Because they're trying to kill everybody. Well, then why wouldn't they just have 5G cause cancer? Why would it be some respiratory issue?
How?
Why wouldn't these radio wave thingies be causing a cell mutation? Why would it be a respiratory issue?
And I didn't really look into the claim, but it's like, well, how did they prove that one wrong? What study was done? They administered high levels of 5G radiation to somebody who didn't have COVID and they didn't get it.
Yeah, it's like, how do you prove that false? I mean, you could essentially prove false saying that waves don't create viruses, but even then, unless that article is proving that these waves these new waves that we've just created can't create new viruses or new versions of these viruses that already existed. Like if you can't prove it, then it's not proven false. Now, I still don't think that my phone could potentially give me COVID.
But it could give you cancer. Ball cancer.
Oh shit, they did come out at the same time, didn't they?
Well, I mean, okay, so the only reason why we're harping on these is because this is what, when you type in Google, top conspiracies proven wrong. That is like, I actually saw the same article in 3 different links from 3 different sources, and it's all kind of going back to the same article. But the other ones were like debunked information about COVID, blah blah blah. It's all this recent shit. I'm like, no, I want to learn conspiracies in the 90s and the 80s, the 70s, or whatever. Things that people thought were going on that have been proven wrong now because of science and because of information.
Yeah.
And I found the moon landing and flat Earth and maybe aspects of JFK assassination, but then a lot of aspects are also still conspiratorial. So it's not all disproven. So it's like, okay, where the disproving of all these claims that are going on now? So, okay, well, 2 years ago, all this stuff was misinformation. Now it's basically being validated.
Yeah.
So was it that crazy to call it conspiracy and misinformation when no one had the data to back up why it wasn't true?
See, and that's one of my biggest problems
So,
is
yeah, well,
going back to the conspiracy theorist term. It was literally like 10 years ago. I saw a thing that explained that conspiracy theorist was coined by the CIA after the Kennedy assassination, and it explained essentially where to go to find this. FBI.gov. You go into this category and this category, section 3.6. I mean, it's sublayers. You just keep going through all these layers, and I found it. I it's like a treasure map. It's like, all right, I go left here, right here, boom, I got to my destination. When I got there, I read the article, and that's exactly what it said. It said it was to keep speculation down about the Kennedy assassination and to essentially demonize people who were looking into it by calling them conspiracy theorists or tinfoil hat people. It was in the declassified government on FBI.gov. Looking into this past few years, it's been a little harder to find for whatever reason, but I will try to get that up there if I can. But what bothers me is I read the article. It was a legitimate article, but if you Google it, everything will tell you that it's not true, that it was just a meme that started, that it was actually coined later. Like I can understand if you said it was coined earlier. If this term was coined earlier, then if you can prove that, then it being coined by the FBI wouldn't be true. But the argument is that no, it wasn't coined then when Kennedy was assassinated. It was coined later. Well, can you prove it wasn't coined then? Because I have the documents from the FBI saying that the CIA coined it specifically for this reason. And again, I'm not speculating that they coined that term to demonize people because they killed him. I'm speculating that at the very least, they created a term, conspiracy theorists, to demonize people because they didn't want rumors going around after what was obviously a historic tragedy.
Right.
So my issue is that I saw the article. It was a real article. It's about as factual as you can get. And if you look it up now, virtually everything says, no, it's not really true. All the fact checkers, one of the fact checking sites I saw said not only was it not true, it wasn't coined in 1963. It was coined in the later 60s. And I'm like, okay. And they're like, also, but never saying, none of these articles ever talk about the declassified document. It didn't start from a meme. This conspiracy started from the document being declassified and people spreading it. A few people come across it because they actually look through those things in those documents, and they go, "Oh, look what I found!" And they spread it. They're like, "I found a gold mine, guys! Look." The reason we keep hearing the word conspiracy theorist is because it was all started as a derogatory term to get us to not look into stuff. And then it spread like wildfire. People started to spread it, started to tell their friends, and they'd spread it. And then it got to a point where they were like, oh, no, that's misinformation. And one of the sites actually said, it's misinformation. The truth is it actually came out later. So we're not going to acknowledge the why people think it came out earlier. And the why is the declassified document that the CIA did this declassified by the FBI on a government website. We're not going to acknowledge that. We're going to say it just came out later. So that is just not true. And it was debunked by one said it was legitimately debunked by a Twitter user who said it just came out as a meme. So some guy on Twitter said, oh, that just came out as a meme. And they were like, facts. And then and that's your research.
I mean, yeah.
Like I actually, when I heard this, I actually went to the site. I went through all the stuff because I didn't believe it. I was like, there's no way. I went through all the stuff and I found the declassified document, and I was like, this is what it says it is. This is almost word for word what they were saying. This is regardless if you look at it as good or bad, this is true. So when you have literally, when I went to search this in Google, there was no predictive text. It was as if nobody ever searched for this. And then when I finally hit enter, all these articles being like, it's not true, it's not true, it's not true. I'm like, if you don't have predictive text, why are there so many sites dedicated to saying it's not true? You would only say that if so many people are asking if it's true.
Well, and this all comes down to where we are now. And
yeah, I was about to go down a rabbit hole.
Thanks
for pulling me out. Jesus.
Yeah. But no, I mean, so the FBI coined the phrase conspiracy theory, tried to discredit people that were questioning that had real concerns.
On the authenticity of the
Legitimate.
assassination, yeah.
So that is accelerated now, and the reason why, and we both know this, but like just to lay it out, the reason why is that basically we are so connected now. Everyone has phones, everyone has data that's all logged. So like you either need to control that data or you need to just let it go because it's the truth. But like the truth is dangerous. So like you have to kind of curtail the truth and you have to distill the truth into what is acceptable for the normal population to understand as truth. So like there comes, that's kind of a job. You're the arbiter of truth. So like in a way, the government and the big tech agencies have taken that arbitership over, and it's been proven through the Twitter files that there was collaboration to suppress information that is now true, undeniably true, was flagged as misinformation. And so like that gives so much validity to the idea of conspiracy theories that you're almost just like you're going against what your moral foundation of why you would want to suppress this information in the first place. You are basically showing us that, oh yeah, it was true and we suppressed it because we didn't want you to know about it because you would get the wrong idea. Oh, well, the wrong idea about corruption? Why would that be? Why shouldn't I know that? Well, because then you might question your government. Like, why shouldn't I question my government?
Well, isn't that the whole point of our country?
Yeah, isn't that
Always question. It's we the people.
Yeah, it's supposed to be. It's a constitutional foundation. We all have rights. We all have.
You wouldn't worry about that
and-
unless
and-
you're like a dictatorship, right? No.
Yeah, like and it's so backwards now, man. It's like these fascist blah 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 that believe that. Blah, blah, blah. And it's like, no, people are just people. They're just questioning things. And basically what I'm saying is that now we have the ability to communicate, and you have independent media. You have Rumble, great alternative to YouTube,
Yeah,
but
stock up, baby.
made a lot of money in their stock this week. But on like Rumble and independent media is growing, so people are gravitating towards that, which is why they have to work even harder to suppress this stuff. So like that comes down the proverbial they. Again, I said it. The they. It's big tech and it's government. It's not just the government. Not like your friendly representative for your district
Your
and
friendly neighborhood congressman.
Missouri state representative. It's like it's the bureaucrats. It's the government agencies.
bureaucrats.
It's the bureaucrats. But no, I mean, like those are legit. Like those are unelected people. You don't know who they are. You don't know how long they've been working there. You don't know what they've seen as far as, oh, okay, your first day on the job, you come into the CIA, intelligence division. Oh, the JFK assassination was orchestrated by us, and same thing with the World War I Gavrilo Princip assassination that started the whole World War I and II. Oh, people can't know this. We better keep this shrouding going, because if people knew what we did recently, or if people knew what they did in the past and they would knew what we did recently, they wouldn't trust us and we'd be dismantled, and that would cause
But we're
chaos.
not doing it anymore.
Because we're suppressing it for an ethical reason.
Yeah.
Because of the greater good.
Which kind of brings me to
Well,
go on.
I was saying, like, all
Maybe
of
Tug
that
remembers his name.
is culminated to now, where we have people looking into this. We have people like James O'Keefe and Project Veritas talking to the guys that work at Pfizer and all that, and then they find out in their normal everyday life, they're like, oh yeah, the vaccine was kind of like a bullshit. We like pushed it really hard, but like people don't know that. Like they don't care. Like they don't know They know what we tell them. Like, we have actual footage of these people saying this stuff. So, like, the conspiracy theory that started in your gut instinct has now been validated by technology. So they need to control that. They need to seek to control that. And what do they do with that? They direct you to a way that makes them profit.
Yeah.
And it's the conspiracy. It goes on and on. It's getting harder and harder to reel in individuals that have a thinking consciousness and are intelligent and can logically question things. They want to keep you dumb. They want to keep you drugged up. They want to keep you away from the information that could cause you to dissent. And they want to suppress voices that are doing that.
Yeah.
And that's where we're at, man. It's getting harder and harder. Like, we're a small fucking podcast. Obviously, we have a giveaway right there that you can get $5 if you subscribe. Send an email to ParityWorldProductions.
Yeah, even we have to watch what we say.
And we're trying to, but
we're
like,
just
at this
simple
point,
dudes just having a
fuck it.
conversation, but we have to watch how we have a conversation with you guys. Because yes, the internet was made for people to connect, but if I want to share certain views that I'm like, hey, I think this is an interesting idea, I have to watch how I word that interesting idea. Otherwise, that idea might just be canceled out, and I cannot talk about it anymore.
Dude, we should just start streaming live on Rumble and post these videos to YouTube.
Honestly, it's not a bad idea because I do want to make this also very clear on this episode specifically.
Right.
That we had a good number of viewers. We had a handful of people in the chat every episode.
Yeah.
Always discussing with us, always talking with us. We had so many viewers at one time watching always. That number's been at 0 this entire time, ever since we switched to YouTube. And I'm not saying switch to YouTube. We were on Twitch. We added YouTube onto that. So our Twitch stream is still going, as it always has.
Yeah.
And we added YouTube. And suddenly, we have none of our Twitch followers. We've gained none from YouTube. The only people we can get to see this are people that we have go through and look this up. And even then, it's like, why are we not just popping up? I mean,
Yeah.
I think it's really weird that we went from so many subscribers, so many viewers, and ever since we switched to YouTube, we've sat at 0. And I think that's great for the conspiracy episode.
Yeah.
Yeah. F you, YouTube. You guys suck.
If you're
Go to
watching this,
Rumble.
if you're watching this on Rumble, then you know that we switched because we haven't yet.
Yeah.
And we're doing it next week. Fuck it.
Yeah, no, we are switching.
We're going
Fuck
live
YouTube.
on Rumble. We're
Fuck
gonna we'll
YouTube.
post this to YouTube after the fact, but fuck, man.
This is bullshit.
Like, we have a whole. You could call us right now and talk to us and tell us your perspective on this. But
We've been doing this for over 2 years now,
yeah,
and
we had more viewers
somehow-
and followers on Twitch, just on Twitch.
in the first couple months
Yeah.
than we do 2 years later. Literally
Or
the
at least
day,
the past year.
literally the day we switched to YouTube, we stopped having viewers, followers, chat, everything. Everything stopped the moment we switched to YouTube. I just find that interesting. Yeah, F you,
Fuck you,
YouTube.
YouTube.
F YouTube. F YouTube. But yeah, it's I had something though. I was gonna go on to go off what you were saying. Fuck YouTube. To go off YouTube. To go off what you were saying though. I don't know why I'm having trouble remembering this dude's
All right.
name. As soon as I say this, you're gonna be like this guy, and I'm like, yeah. The guy who worked for the CIA and did
Snowden.
Thank you. Jeez, I was thinking like winter, frost. Literally, I was doing something frost, something winter. Snowden. Thank you.
I almost
Yeah.
brought him up earlier.
Jeez
too.
Louise, Edward Snowden. So it was very obvious when he came out, he was like, hey, I know this country. He goes, the Constitution says that what I'm doing, I cannot do. He said, I can wiretap the president at any time I want, and I don't need clearance. I don't need anything. I can listen to anybody's conversation anywhere. I can listen to your phone calls. I could go to my ex-girlfriend. I could listen to anybody's phone call, including the president, with 0 clearance. I can do whatever I want. He said, this is illegal under the Constitution, and I'm bringing this up to you guys knowing, and they already disclosed the guy had a house in Hawaii. You know, he had a beautiful family. Like the guy was making like over 6 figures a
And
year.
he was probably doing a lot of good for the country, honestly,
Yeah, he was making stupid
in his
yeah.
job.
But he was making stupid money. Why would you risk giving all that up unless you felt like what you were doing was that wrong? You have to think of the conviction. So this guy came out and said, hey, under the Constitution, you can look it up. What I'm telling you I'm allowed to do is unconstitutional. It's against what this country was literally founded on. This isn't breaking the law. What I'm doing is worse.
Yeah, what your government is doing to you now and has been in the past 10 years since 9/11, this is unconstitutional.
Yeah, he clearly realized I'm a figurehead. So if I get caught, or if they get caught, I'm the one who goes down. I'm sure he realized that.
Yeah.
That it's like, oh, this isn't going to be something where it's like they're letting you do what? They're going to be like, you did what?
Yeah.
You work for these people and you've been doing what? And they're going to be like, we had no idea. He knows what his job is. We had no idea he was going into anybody's phone.
Scapegoat.
Yeah. So then he takes all the blame. So he was like, I think he probably realized, I'm not going to be the one to take all of this. I know this is wrong. I have to do this. Either I'm going to go to jail inevitably, or maybe I get away with it because nobody ever catches us, or my gut tells me this is wrong. And just to avoid the worst case scenario, I'm just going to do what I know is the best thing I can do. And that's disclose this. So he says, I can do whatever I want through wiretapping, you name it. I can surveil the hell out of you. I can go on your phone. I can watch your videos. I can do whatever I want. And I'm telling you this so that you know that this is going on. And all of media turned on him and attacked him and was like, he's treasonous. This is sensitive information. He's risking
National security.
National security risk. That's what they called it. And I was like, he's a national security risk. So you guys aren't worried about the fact that what he's saying and validating that the CIA is allowing him to do is unconstitutional against what this entire country stood for, but he is a national security risk.
Yeah.
He's risking our national security by telling us that our national security is at risk.
Instead of changing the laws and looking into it, we're going to call this guy a criminal.
Yeah, who do you go to? I understand, like when you work at a company, a good company, your manager will tell you, hey, if you ever have a problem, even with me, with anybody, as a lower employer or supervisor, if you have a problem with me, you can go.
Just come talk to me.
You can come if it's about me, you can go to our AGM. If that's a problem, you can go to the general manager. And if you feel like nobody here is really taking you serious, you can go to corporate. And this is an open door thing. Anybody you want to talk to, you can talk to, and we'll take it serious. So if you work for the CIA wiretapping the president, who do you go to say, hey, this is wrong? I am HR, bitch. Like, who the heck am I? Nobody's going to listen to me.
They send you to psychologists and like, here, take this.
Yeah, he's been doing a lot of drugs. He lost his
Take
mind.
this drug.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, his drug test came up MDMA, psilocybin. Everything this guy said is not credible.
Also, is that scar on his forehead? Has that always been there? Because it seemed like it just popped up. Like
a Harry Potter strike?
No, like a lobotomy.
No,
but but no, it's like
Free Snowden.
Free Snowden.
And Julian Assange.
Free Snowden. Thought we were going to zoom out. There we go. Free Snowden.
Well, Julian Assange is an interesting one because he was an American citizen. He was captured by our government for saying naughty things about Clinton.
Yeah.
Ooh. Don't wanna go down those rabbit holes, I guess.
She's never killed anybody. A lot of people have not disappeared under her watch who worked for her.
Yeah.
Literally disappeared.
And Bill Clinton only went to Epstein Island a couple times.
He did not have sexual
Maybe
relations
just
with
once.
that woman.
At least once. At least once, but like probably not that many times. He probably wasn't having sex with young girls.
All I know is he did lie to me live on television when I was a child.
Oh yeah, he
and said I didn't bang this chick, and I was like, "Oh, the president's telling me he didn't bang some chick," and he's like, "Okay, I did bang that chick," and I'm like, "Okay, what else are you lying about?"
He also didn't inhale, or was that Obama? He didn't inhale.
Oh yeah, I think that was Obama. I smoked, but I didn't inhale.
I snorted crack, but I didn't suck it up that hard.
It's like the taste.
Those are all conspiracies, by the way.
They're all conspiracies. We're not,
No validity to them whatsoever.
yeah, they're just made up stuff.
Yeah.
This is all fake.
Misinformation.
Yeah, don't Google anything we're saying.
Big Brother's watching.
I think he heard you. My Alexa's making sounds upstairs.
But we got about 5 minutes left. We should try to end it before the 2-hour mark. Just
Yeah,
so we
we'll
don't-
hop into some closing.
yeah, let's hop into some closing.
Yeah. Woman, do you have anything you would like to add as far as like your overall perspective on the entirety of what is conspiracy theory?
I just think Marilyn Monroe was killed, and same with Kurt Cobain.
She's been researching conspiracies this whole time.
She's doing nothing for our conversation or podcast. She's back there like, I'm going to find out who did this.
No, I think there's a lot going on. and
She's
they
like,
are
actually,
trying-
I have a whole nother episode I'm about to go into about her. I figured it out.
All right.
No, I definitely agree. I mean, the thing with Marilyn Monroe, her life was obviously not just tragic, but it was very controlled, very suspicious by the, very powerful people she hung out with, but also very little control she had, inevitably leading to her death. You have Kurt Cobain singing, "And I swear that I don't have a gun," and then he shoots himself.
How long until Kanye kills himself? You know?
I think he's already gotten to the point where he's, they've labeled him as.
They label him
I don't know.
as
I don't know.
you know.
I don't know.
as
I was going to say
crazy
they
as
labeled him
rash.
as too crazy to the point where
We're
he's
calling
trying,
it out. Kanye's not killing himself. Andrew Tate's not killing himself. Donald Trump's not killing himself. Fucking none of these people.
No.
No.
Jeffrey Epstein didn't kill himself.
Yeah. Oh, but Epstein, he did kill himself. He managed to fashion a noose from the bedding in the cell that was mostly concrete, but there was a little bit of cloth, and he figured out a way to tie it to the ceiling.
He wasn't just
Structure and,
some rich millionaire,
he
billionaire
also-
mogul.
he
He was also a MacGyver of sorts.
And he also, he silenced the mic and the video camera before he did it.
And I'm sure the guards that were watching that at the time, I'm sure they died of natural causes
for
almost
our-
immediately after. Don't look that up either.
Yeah, just for our benefit. So
For
we
our
didn't have
benefit.
to see him kill himself. He did us a favor.
Yeah, he's a smart guy. He's like, let me disconnect the camera. Nobody needs to
Case
see this.
closed. Gillian Maxwell, we'll just, we'll keep your trial in secret.
I also wanted to say I think it's super bizarre. I think it's disgusting that R. Kelly had sexual relations with a minor. His trafficking charges, as far as I've looked up, mainly revolve around him taking the underage girl across state lines for some date thing or whatever they were doing. Took her out of state, and as a result, that legally counts as trafficking. So I believe he got 30 years. I believe.
Oh, really?
Ghislaine Maxwell got significantly less
Oh,
after
interesting.
admitting that she was somebody who was grooming women into looking at sex as fun to get them ready for being sex trafficked while they were already abducted and kidnapped. I think it's fascinating that R. Kelly, again, I think it's what he did is sick and twisted, but
Well,
to get that much longer of a sentence, over triple the
Okay,
sentence.
so within our lifetime, she'll come out.
Yeah, can
she'll
you
have
look up
a,
real quick
She'll
what
have a
Ghislaine
Netflix,
Maxwell's
Netflix
sentence
special.
was? Yeah,
You
yeah.
know, like she'll be in 75 years. We'll get the release of Pfizer's agreement with the government.
This is what
It
we
was a
actually found out about
75
Epstein.
75-year
remembers.
memorandum.
Yeah. Yeah, your grandpa remembers what happened then. Ask him. It's crazy times.
It's like basically
so
saying that everyone who's alive right now will be dead by the time this comes out, unless you were a baby child born that day. Our life expectancy is going down for
Come on.
whatever
He
reason.
was
you really think-
sentenced to 20 years.
And can you look up R. Kelly's sentence? Now, I think we can all agree R. Kelly did some shady shit and probably did stuff we don't know about, but I think we can all agree that whatever Ghislaine Maxwell was involved in was probably 1,000 times worse because it was part of one of the biggest human sex trafficking rings in the world,
Dude,
as far as what we know of.
honestly, some
This guy banged a 16-year-old across state lines.
politician-
That's fucked up. But
let's say fucking Bobby Kennedy, he gets elected. I hope this happened. It could be someone else too. I don't know who else it might be. But let's say he gets elected, fucking exposes the 75-year memorandum on the Pfizer bullshit, fucking gives Ghislaine Maxwell total immunity to speak openly about everything on record. You know, like someone needs to fucking stand up and expose this shit, yo.
yeah.
Like this is ridiculous.
Did you-
That's why everyone's afraid of an independent candidate, is because shit could go down.
Did you get the number for R. Kelly?
Shit could go down.
Because,
I'm telling you, dude.
Because this is what I'm saying. So obviously Ghislaine Maxwell is involved with very rich people if she's with, Epstein. And he's connected to every celebrity, all these rich people, politicians, you name it. He's in the inner circle, and he's rich as hell. His right-hand woman is also partly not just involved in sex trafficking, but she's one of the ones who brainwashes these poor girls to reprogram them into looking at sex different before they ship them out and sell them to whoever these people are they're being sold to.
Yeah.
She got 20 years. What did R. Kelly get?
So it says 20-year prison sentence for his convictions of CP and the enticement of minors for sex. But he said he will serve nearly all the sentence simultaneously with a 30-year sentence imposed last year on racketeering charges.
So 30 years for R. Kelly, 20 years for Ghislaine Maxwell. And you're telling me that our judicial system
Yeah.
is for us?
Yeah.
Our judicial system is against child trafficking. However, Ghislaine Maxwell gets 10 years less than a guy who banged a 16-year-old across state lines. But the woman who programs these girls to enjoy sex by the people they're being sold to,
And that may
as
still
property,
be sold to those
as
people.
freaking property. And the 16-year-old girl, I do not agree with what he did. On record, I think it's terrible.
Oh, no, yeah,
but I will say that her mom knew about it the whole time.
Yeah, she's
Her mom let it happen. This wasn't like, my child was abducted, brainwashed by some lady to think sex was fun before she was sold to some oil tycoon. This was like, hey, he's rich, go for it. That's what it. And he got 10 years more. None of that makes sense to me. You're telling me the guy who buys a sex slave, let's say, for example, a guy who buys a sex slave gets more time than the person who creates and reprograms sex slaves and is part of the trade? You're telling me the guy who buys coke gets more time than the guy selling it?
Right, dude. That's a great logic.
It makes no sense.
Dude, that doesn't make any. It makes no goddamn sense.
None at all.
No fucking sense.
None at all.
Hey, and we will not be stopped. We will not be silenced.
Because we're going to switch to Rumble next week.
We're
Join us.
switching to
soon.
Rumble. Fuck you, YouTube.
Yeah, you guys are assholes. You got any finishing points on this topic?
Oh, me?
Oh, you as well. Woman.
I thought I need to.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just there's a lot of stuff going on that they don't want us to really know because there's a lot of people involved, all celebrities,
Whoa, that sounds like a conspiracy.
I mean, I think that's the sum of it. They don't want you questioning it.
Because they're involved. Whoever they are.
Yeah, whoever
of Hollywood.
they, the proverbial they. All right, so whoever they means to you, they don't want you questioning reality or any form of corruption, manipulation, influence over your life for a negative reason. They want you thinking that everything's ethically based and humans are great and we're going into the, we're in the 21st century as pioneers for the good of humanity.
We've evolved.
We've evolved beyond the...
We're not part of that Stone
We don't
Age.
beat each other with stones and clubs. We we have sex with each other in weird ways and sell it for money.
We don't beat people over the head with clubs and drag them into a cave.
And you will
No,
eat
we abduct them with a helicopter.
You will eat the bugs, and yes, and we meet every year to
And
discuss
you will like it.
how many diseases you'll get next year.
God, speaking of the WEF, did you see if they had like some like voodoo shaman person in there doing blessings on all of them?
Yeah,
My God. God, that stuff was creepy. I was like, and they were sitting there like, bless me now. I was like, I'd be like, yo, next. I'd dodge it and be like, whoa, I don't know what you're doing, but I don't want it.
let me bless
And
you.
why are you doing this on stage?
Bless you with the cyanide pill.
Why are you doing this on stage at the WEF?
Dude,
What is that? What are you trying to tell people?
This is like
It's
like
creepy as hell.
we might end this part of this episode, but dude, I hope somebody like fucking bombs Davos or like
No, you don't. You don't
Blows.
hope that. Not on camera, you don't.
no, on camera I don't. But wouldn't it be great? Wouldn't it be great if it just was all taken care of and we didn't have to worry about it? It won't be me because I won't worry about those things. I'm just going to not question my government or the motives of anyone. And I'm just going to continue to make content that is friendly to all people and races and sexual orientations. And
Yeah, and I want to end it with this as well. I think it's as simple as we all need to come together to agree on what we don't like. What we don't like is human trafficking. What we don't like is
yeah.
drugs.
Murder.
What we don't like is
Sedition.
is dark things like Satan. You know, if somebody no seriously though,
Yeah.
If everybody thinks it's crazy, but if a politician came out and said I worship Satan, I think the majority would be like, why would you say that out loud? You know, even if you don't really care, you'd be like, that's a weird thing to say. If you come out and say I believe in God, you might not believe in God. You might be an atheist and be like, oh, this guy, he's trying to get votes. But if a guy comes out and says Satan, you don't go, he's trying to get votes. You go, dude, why would you say that?
Yeah.
Because inherently it's something we don't like. So when you see the World Economic Forum publicly broadcasting, look, we have this like weird, creepy voodoo shaman lady doing weird to each one of the panelists, and all of them look like they're taking it serious. It's like, yo, what are we letting these people do? Why are they broadcasting this? Why are they making these? Look them up. Why are they making these weird commercials of saying like in the future we're going to be in little houses, we're going to eat bugs, nobody's going to own anything, we're all going to rent, we're all going to live equally. They're basically pushing like the whole world's going to go under socialism and strict control where everybody lives in small quarantine cities. You can't really travel, you can't really do anything. Everything's just going to be simple and safe. And you hear that while they have shamans blowing in their face, and you're like, yo, is anybody going to acknowledge that this shit is fucking clown world? My God.
And that's the thing, dude. Like, if you suppress society that way, you're not going to get the Teslas and the Einsteins and the fucking
No, not at all.
Muskies. The Muskies.
Speaking of Einstein, there's a quote he said, and it's just, he said, question everything.
Hey, question everything. Be a skeptic. I'm a skeptic till I die, dude.
One of the
Like-
world's smartest men. Question everything. But in this time of our country, honestly, you should stop questioning things. You know, if something seems...
Just accept
if it seems shady, assume it's not. And just be like,
Yeah.
you're crazy for thinking that at this point in life, when we're this advanced, after all the horrible things that have happened throughout history, there's no way we're still so unevolved that we're, evil.
Yeah, people aren't evil. We all do good things.
We've evolved evil
you
out of
know,
us. We're all
everyone's-
good. We're all good
Everyone's
people.
doing good things. And take your vaccines and join us next week.
We love you.
On
Meta
Rumble.
Perspective out.
Meta Perspective Podcast.